Most people think counterfeit money is a crime committed by amateurs, a back alley operation, a basement printer, a handful of bills slipped into circulation. But history tells a darker story. Counterfeiting isn't just fraud. It isn't just theft. It is economic warfare. Because money is not paper. Money is not metal. Money is trust, and trust is terrifyingly fragile. Throughout history, nations didn't collapse because enemies invaded their borders. They collapsed because enemies invaded their currencies. A fake coin here, a forged bill there, and suddenly, the foundation of an entire civilization began to crack from the inside. The danger of counterfeit money is simple. If people can't trust their currency, they can't trust their country. When counterfeit money enters a system, it doesn't just buy goods, it buys chaos. Merchants raise prices because coins can't be trusted. Farmers refuse payments because bills might be fake. Taxes become harder to collect. Debt becomes harder to repay. Markets slow. Trade freezes. Governments panic. The economy doesn't collapse because the fake money is valuable. It collapses because the real money stops meaning anything. And the people who understood this best were not criminals. They were governments. Ottoman rebels didn't just fight the empire on the battlefield. They minted fake coins and pushed them across borders until prices rose. Soldiers went unpaid, and citizens turned against their own rulers. The British didn't just fight the American Revolution with muskets. They printed Continental dollars by the boatload, so many that the currency evaporated into worthlessness, and the phrase, "not worth a Continental," entered American language permanently. Nazi Germany didn't try to bomb London's economy. They tried to print it out of existence. And in the modern era, the most dangerous counterfeit bills ever produced weren't made by criminals, but by a government. North Korea's supernotes, perfect $100 bills that fooled even the U.S. Treasury, proved a terrifying truth. A single rogue state with a printing press can undermine the world's reserve currency. Counterfeiting has been used as a weapon for 2,000 years because it attacks the one thing no nation can survive without: confidence. A counterfeit bullet wounds one man. A counterfeit bill wounds an entire system. It doesn't kill instantly, it kills slowly, with inflation, panic, suspicion, and doubt. Counterfeiting is the quietest form of economic collapse, the kind that starts unnoticed and ends unstoppable. And the Ottomans learned this lesson the hard way. Long before modern economies discovered inflation, the Ottomans lived through a version so slow, so quiet, and so devastating that it nearly hollowed out one of the world's greatest empires, not through war, not through rebellion, but through counterfeit money. The Ottoman Empire stretched across continents. It commanded armies, trade routes, and cities that glowed with wealth. But its greatest vulnerability wasn't on the map. It was in the mint. Coins were the backbone of Ottoman life, stamped with the Sultan's mark, guaranteed in weight, trusted across 3 continents. But trust is a fragile thing, and when it breaks everything with it. Counterfeiters learned this early. They took genuine Ottoman coins, silver akshes, and clipped them, shaving tiny slivers of precious metal from the edges. A gram here, a grain there. Too small for merchants to notice, too small for soldiers to question. But small cuts multiplied across millions of coins became a financial amputation. Then came the next step. Counterfeiters started melting real coins and minting new ones with cheaper metal. Alloys that looked silver but weren't. Coins that shone like real money but rang hollow when struck. They circulated from market to market, from merchant to merchant, until no one could tell the difference between value and fraud. The result was inflation before the word inflation even existed. Merchants raised prices because coins were unreliable. Tax collectors demanded more because revenues fell. Soldiers protested because their pay lost purchasing power. Common people hoarded old coins and refused new ones. And the Ottoman state, a giant with a paper-thin economic foundation, suddenly found itself sinking. But the most dangerous part wasn't the counterfeiters inside the empire. It was the enemies outside it. Persian forgers flooded Ottoman markets with fake silver. European rivals manipulated the empire's currency through trade. Even rebellious provinces minted their own coins to destabilize Istanbul. This wasn't petty crime. This was economic warfare, silent, anonymous, and devastating. The empire responded the only way it knew how, by issuing new coins. But every time the state replaced its currency, trust fell further. People treated each new coin with more suspicion than the last. The economy took on water faster than the government could bail it out. The Ottoman Empire was learning the cruelest truth about counterfeit money. It attacks faith, not finances. And once faith disappears, collapse is not a question. It's a timeline. The Ottomans were the first great empire to experience this kind of monetary sabotage. America would be the next. The Revolutionary War wasn't just fought with muskets, cannons, and militias. It was fought with printing presses. When the American colonies declared independence, they also declared something far more dangerous: a new currency. The Continental dollar. A paper promise backed by hope instead of gold. A symbol of a nation that didn't exist yet. And Britain understood exactly what to do with symbols. You don't need to crush them. You need to corrupt them. Counterfeiting wasn't a side strategy for the British. It was the strategy. They printed fake Continental dollars by the shipload. Millions of notes dumped into American markets, slipped into soldier salaries, paid to spies, funneled through merchants, and carried by loyalists into every corner of the colonies. It was financial poison, and it worked with terrifying efficiency. Merchants raised prices because they couldn't tell which notes were real. Soldiers demanded food and supplies that farmers refused to sell for worthless paper. Inflation exploded, not because the Americans printed too much, but because Britain printed even more. The phrase, "not worth a Continental," wasn't a joke. It was a national humiliation. Counterfeit money broke the backbone of the continental economy long before the armies met on the battlefield. Even George Washington feared the collapse. He wrote that counterfeit currency was more dangerous than British troops, the most effectual engine of our ruin. Think about that. The commander of the revolution believed fake money posed a greater threat than a full British invasion, because the danger wasn't just economic, it was psychological. When money fails, the revolution fails with it. No army marches when wages can't buy bread. No farmer sells grain for paper that crumbles into nothing. No nation survives when its currency becomes a punchline. The Continental Congress tried everything: redesigns, audits, arrests, executions. Nothing worked. Britain had discovered the same weapon that crippled the Ottomans: destroy the currency, and you destroy the country. By the final years of the war, Continental dollars weren't money. They were wallpaper, and yet somehow the Americans survived. Not because their currency recovered, it didn't, but because the French financed the revolution with real gold. Without Europe's money, the United States would not exist. The Americans defeated the British Army, but the British nearly defeated America's economy, with ink, paper, and a printing press. By the time World War II erupted, the world had seen counterfeit money used as sabotage, but no one had seen anything like Operation Bernhard. This wasn't petty crime. This wasn't amateur forgery. This was the largest state-run counterfeiting operation in human history, engineered by Nazi Germany to do something no army had ever achieved: collapse the British economy without firing a shot. The goal was simple, terrifying, and brilliant: print millions of perfect British banknotes, so perfect they could fool the Bank of England itself, and flood Europe with them until the pound became worthless. Money would become a biological weapon. Trust would become the casualty. The Nazis didn't recruit criminals. They recruited craftsmen, Jewish prisoners, master engravers, typographers, mathematicians, men who had once created beauty, now forced to manufacture economic destruction. Behind barbed wire at Sachsenhausen concentration camp, these prisoners produced forgeries that were not close enough. They were flawless. Every watermark replicated, every fiber matched, every imperfection copied, every serial number tracked to real batches of British notes. The forged pounds were so perfect that even seasoned bankers couldn't tell the difference, unless they held them to the light, squinted, and prayed. By 1943, the Nazis were printing millions per month. The plan? Airdrop the fake notes over British cities. Let civilians pick them up. Let them spend them. Let the economy implode under the weight of uncertainty. Imagine waking up to money falling from the sky and realizing it might be the death of your currency. But something stopped the attack. Fear. Fear that the operation was too successful, that the Nazis might destroy the very financial system they hoped to dominate after victory. So they changed tactics. Instead of bombing Britain with money, they laundered it across Europe, through black markets, spies, and neutral banks. The forged pounds destabilized trade, funded espionage, and sowed distrust across an entire continent. The Bank of England panicked. It halted the printing of 5 or 10 or 20 and $50 notes. For years after the war, the British government refused to publish the full truth. The real fear wasn't Nazi Germany, it was confidence. If the public learned how close the pound came to collapse, trust in the currency might never recover. Operation Bernhard didn't break the pound, but it broke something deeper. The illusion that money is safe from warfare. Economies don't need invasions to fall. They need counterfeits. Perfect, silent, invisible. And in the modern world, one nation would take this weapon even further. By the late 20th century, counterfeiting wasn't just a crime. It wasn't even just sabotage. It had evolved into something far more dangerous, state-sponsored financial warfare. And no country mastered it better, or more fearlessly, than North Korea. The operation was simple in theory, horrifying in execution. Create counterfeit US dollars so perfect that even American banks couldn't tell the difference. Flood them into global markets, destabilize the world's reserve currency, and use the profits to fund a regime isolated from the global economy. These were not fake bills, they were supernotes, forgeries so precise that the US Treasury called them the most dangerous counterfeits ever made. To understand the magnitude, you have to understand the target. The US dollar isn't just currency, it's the backbone of global trade, global reserves, global stability. Break the dollar, and you break the world. North Korea went after it anyway. Using specialized presses, imported inks, stolen cotton blends, and engravers trained to replicate every microscopic detail, the regime produced counterfeit 100 bills that were nearly indistinguishable from the real thing. The paper felt identical. The holograms behaved correctly. The security ribbon was exact. Even the magnetic ink matched the US formula. When American intelligence first encountered the bills, they didn't believe they were fake. That was the point. Supernotes spread through. Casinos in Macau, banks in Hong Kong, black markets across Southeast Asia, criminal networks in Europe, diplomatic pouches immune to inspection. Each bill was a tiny economic bomb, one that detonated quietly every time it entered circulation. The danger wasn't the amount printed. The danger was the implication. If a rogue state can duplicate the world's strongest currency, no currency is safe. The CIA launched covert investigations. The Secret Service deployed teams across continents. Treasury officials re-engineered the $100 bill entirely, adding new layers of security specifically because of North Korea. The discovery triggered panic within intelligence circles, not because North Korea could bankrupt America, that wasn't realistic, but because confidence, not metal or paper, is the foundation of a modern financial system. And North Korea had proven a terrifying truth. A single rogue government with a printing press can bend the global economy. Supernotes weren't an attack on the dollar. They were an attack on trust, the invisible asset that keeps world markets alive. And if counterfeiting could threaten the US dollar, the most protected currency in history, what did that mean for the rest of the world? The modern age didn't outgrow the dangers of fake money. It amplified them. Because the next threat won't be from a printing press. It will be digital, invisible, instantaneous, and global. People like to believe counterfeit money is a relic, a crime of the past, replaced by digital banking, encrypted payments, and advanced security. But that belief is exactly what makes the modern world so vulnerable, because counterfeiting never disappeared. It upgraded. The threat today isn't a forged coin, or a smudged banknote, or a basement printer. The threat today is something much bigger. An entire financial system built on trust so delicate that even a rumor can cause collapse. In ancient times, counterfeit money created inflation. In the Ottoman Empire, it created revolt. During the American Revolution, it nearly created defeat. Under the Nazis, it nearly created bankruptcy. Under North Korea, it nearly created global uncertainty. But the modern world faces something more dangerous than all of them: a currency system that can be attacked digitally, instantly, and anonymously. Today, counterfeiting doesn't require metal or paper. It requires access, code, and a single breach in the wrong place. Banks run on databases. Markets run on algorithms. Currencies exist as numbers, not objects. If someone alters those numbers, even for a moment, even by a fraction of a percent, the consequences are catastrophic. A fake $100 bill might be caught. A fake ledger entry might not, and the world knows it. That's why cybercriminals target SWIFT transfers. Nation-states hack central banks. Laundering networks move billions through crypto mixers. Rogue governments experiment with digital forgeries. Deepfake financial documents fool institutions. AI-generated transactions slip through compliance systems. The danger isn't just fake money. The danger is fake value. And in a globalized economy, value moves at the speed of light. A forged transaction in Singapore affects markets in London. A corrupted database in New York rattles confidence in Tokyo. A breach of one central bank threatens every central bank. Modern finance isn't a fortress. It's a glass tower. Transparent, magnificent, but frighteningly fragile. The same principle that destroyed the Continental dollar still applies today. If people doubt their currency, the economy dies before the government can react. The difference is scale. In the 1700s, counterfeit money threatened a young America. In the 1940s, it threatened Britain. In the 2000s, it threatened global markets. But today, a successful counterfeit attack, digital or physical, wouldn't destabilize a nation. It would destabilize the world. Because confidence is now global. Currencies are now intertwined. Debt is international. And financial trust is the last invisible wall holding civilization together. Counterfeiting isn't history. It's a warning. A warning that money, the thing billions rely on, is only as real as our belief in it. And the moment that belief cracks, the entire system we depend on becomes counterfeit too.